Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean go solo live? Have you ever been asked, why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Welcome to Go Solo Live. This is Jennifer with Transform Via Travel. We are in our special season of our podcast, and now I'd like to introduce Dr. Mary Travelbest.
Hi, my name is Dr. Mary Travelbest, and I'm here to talk to you about travel. If you're a woman who likes to travel, you're in the right spot. If you're a woman who wants to travel, you're here because you want to get to go. And if you're a little bit afraid about going independently, well, please keep listening because I'm going to give you some tips and some advice and also tell you some of the mistakes that I've made in my journeys so that you will feel much more comfortable when it's time for you to get up and go. So what's on your bucket list? Please be sure to find me on your social media and respond. Where do you want to go? To begin with, I will be talking about some of the things that I've done in travel. I published the world's first guide to independent travel in 1993, and I want to help you travel as long as you can. Since that time, I've traveled to many, many more countries, and many I've gone back to. So it's very different since the first time. So stick around. We'll hear some good stories. I'm going to start off with a question. This comes to me from a reader. It says, I will be in London and considering getting a 2-day pass for the bus. Is it worth it? Well, this could be any city we'd be talking about because just about every city has one of those jump on, jump off buses, right? Depending on what you like to do, this could be a great experience or it could be just a waste of your time. I have done this in some cities, especially if I don't speak the language. It's been a good experience for me. In London, this is weather related, could be good, could be bad. Lots of rain you'll see. Depending on the season and the time of year, you can get around the city on the tube, the subway, much faster and probably a lot less expensive than you will on a bus. And the weather could be great on that day or it could be just terrible. If it's a nice day, jump up and go on the top deck and see what you can of downtown because it is worth seeing. Now, if you're in, for example, Barcelona, I've done that and ridden around the city. I saw enough of the city in that day where I got my fill. I also did it in Paris. And again, I thought it was really worthwhile. But it really depends on the city you're in and who you're with and also what your appetite for exploration is. If it's your first time in that city, you might want to just get the lay of the land and feel comfortable. If you're going to be staying for several weeks, then it might not be an important thing for you to do, but especially if you have a short time span. This is about independent travel, but sometimes we do decide that going on a bus is the best way for us to do independent travel. You can usually jump off and jump on whenever you want to do it. So you're not on a tour. Although if you want to listen to the driver talk about the sights, that could be fun too. For those who are looking to see a new city, especially if you've never been to that city before, I would say go for it for at least 1 day or maybe 2. And again, compare the prices of what it would run you to be on a city bus. For example, in San Francisco, that's one of the things I love to do. Yes, we can jump on the cable cars, of course, but you can just jump on a city bus pretty much anywhere you want. And I've done that in lots of cities. So we'll be talking about FAQs. Please send me yours. So let's talk about New York. Are you scared of New York? You shouldn't be scared of the subway or the people. They may seem to be a little pushier than in other parts of the world, depending on where you're from. I'm from New York. I was born there. I was raised there. To me, New York is a wonderful place to visit. Times Square is one of the most exciting and vigorous parts of the world. The advertising displays, New Year's Eve, crazy people walking around, taxis everywhere. It's a sight to be seen. I think that New York is one of those places you have to go to. And like I said, I was from there. My first airplane flight at 15 was moving away from New York and landing in Chicago. My second flight was 3 months later. My father dropped me off at O'Hare Airport and said, have a good trip. So I went back to New York for 3 weeks. And we really never spoke during that time. But I knew I was fine, and he knew I was fine, and everybody was happy. It was an adventure. I stayed with 3 different families in New York. I saw lots of things that I've never seen because I was on my own for the most part, at least arriving in the airport, getting a taxi, getting to the various destinations, and back home again. New York can be stress-free if you understand that New Yorkers are maybe a little bit different. They may be a little more brusque, but they are still willing to help you if you ask. So they are kind. There is a lot of kindness in New York, and that, yes, there's a lot of traffic. And it was at one point known for a lot of crime. But I think if you keep your eyes and ears peeled, you are protective of your security, don't go into areas where you don't feel comfortable, then you should have a really, really good time. I mentioned taxis, yes. The subway, yes. Buses, yes. Ubers, lots of different opportunities. And then there's bike sharing too. So there's a $12 a day bike for as many half-hour rides as you want. So you can go all over the city and really get that full experience. What museums should you go to? Well, there's certainly no shortage of them. The Metropolitan Museum is one of the best, but you'll find the History Museum and you'll find some other museums. And of course, you've got to go to Central Park. You got to take the ferry past the Statue of Liberty. I think it's either free or a nickel. It's really quite an adventure. So we talked about FAQs, we talked about New York, and I want to also talk about a few other places. What about Florida? Have you been there? Well, some people say it's just for old people, but really, there's a lot of snowbirds of all ages that like Florida, and many of them are from New York. You'll find wonderful things to do in Florida, including Orlando, which is always one of those fun places where Disney is. And you've got the Bahamas nearby. You've got several national parks nearby. You've got things to do in Florida that you couldn't do in other cities. So I would say Florida is a great destination if you're thinking about it. So now let me tell you a few of the mistakes that I've made about traveling. One of the things was on an international trip to Tahiti. And I was with a girlfriend, and we spent a couple of days in Tahiti and had a really good time. And when the time came to leave Tahiti, I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but I'll just say our flight left 12 hours before we got to the airport. Those were back in the days of handwritten tickets. And our travel agent wrote down 1:15 p.m. and the flight left Papeete at 1:15 a.m. instead. So we were stranded another 3 days in Tahiti. However, you manage. And so we made the most of these circumstances. We had befriended some Tahitian gals. They shared with us some of the outfits that they had worn and invited us to an anniversary party of one of their relatives. We would never have been able to experience that had we left at that time. Having a few extra days in Tahiti turned out to be a wonderful experience. Even though there's mishaps, even though there's missteps, even though there's problems, and I've had my share, you could make the most of your trip by adjusting and trying to accomplish what you really want to. And when things don't happen the way you expect them to, figure something else out. Make the most of it. So I want to build your confidence as an independent traveler. I want you to feel that you can explore places near and far and do well with it. Last weekend, I went to Arizona. So the Grand Canyon is there. So I flew to Phoenix, rented a car, and decided I was going to drive to the Grand Canyon. So I had a travel guide with me, just a book on travel and a destination and a rental car. So I started on my way, just trying to make some heads or tails of this. I got most of the way there, but it started snowing. Now, this was mid-April. I had to turn around. I wasn't dressed. I didn't have the right snow tires. I had a car that really wasn't suitable for this kind of weather. So turned around and decided wasn't meant to be. So I went back to Flagstaff and back to Sedona do you know the weather in those two cities was beautiful? And I got lots of pictures and adventure and got out of the car and just walked around. So if you have a chance to go to Sedona, you will enjoy the same things I did. If you want to go to the Grand Canyon, yes, but do check the weather. Something I didn't do that day. I figured it was going to be an easy drive, but I was wrong. So if you are stuck, sometimes turning around is the best decision. And again, I had a great time in Sedona. You know, Sedona is a small town. It's got a population of less than 12,000 people. And the natural beauty and the sacred nature of that are just really, really amazing. If you go in the middle of the busy season, like the summertime, it could be really difficult for you. I would highly recommend that you go and check out some of the malls, check out some of the nature walks, and go see Sedona. And you'll be going through Flagstaff if, like me, you turned around at the Grand Canyon on your way back to Phoenix. With that, I want to say thank you for being a participant here. Dr. Mary Travelbest wants you to find your way. I'd love to have you tell me what's on your bucket list. I've been traveling for so long. My goal is to build a community of women like you who want to travel and want to get better at it. So if you're an experienced travel, stick along. If you are still new to travel, you're going to learn a lot through my conversations. Thank you so much for your enjoyment of this.